Driving Singapore's economic growth will be more collaborative. We'll explain what this means ahead on the show.
2 COVID-19 vaccines could be authorized for use in the US by the end of the year.
And stay tuned for this weekend's live picks. If you love barbecue and Guinness, we just have the thing for you.
Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Dimana. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
The Emerging Stronger Task Force has taken stock of its work 6 months after it was set up to tackle economic challenges arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Multimedia journalist Renee Poh has more.
A new startup approach piloted by public agencies and the private sector working together across different industries may soon become the norm. This approach was conceived by the Alliances for Action, which are industry-led partnerships working with the government to drive economic growth. And Deputy Prime Minister Heng said the Emerging Stronger Task Force will continue to grow the momentum of these partnerships.
The co-chairs decided on a different approach for this committee. They decided to prototype new ideas that emerged even as consultations and deliberations were still taking place. We'll see through the first wave of AFAs to fruition and scale up good prototypes. We'll also be launching more AFAs. We welcome more partners to come on board.
One of these is a new alliance on medical technology, which will explore opportunities around in vitro diagnostics for disease preparedness, containment, and control. An alliance on forming win-win partnerships with Southeast Asian partners is also being considered. The 7 alliances set up so far have made good progress over the past few months. For instance, the Alliance for Safe and Innovative Visitor Experiences has developed a prototype for holding large-scale trade shows and exhibitions safely through the use of COVID-19 testing and contact tracing. The prototype was first tested at the Singapore International Energy Week in October and will continue to be refined at upcoming trade shows like at next week's Travel Revive. DPM Heng, National Development Minister and Task Force Co-Chair Desmond Lee, as well as other members, toured the PSA Innovation Centre today to look at how it is using technology to optimize its port operations. Mr. Lee said the 7 alliances have collectively engaged more than 330 stakeholders, but will continue to need more views moving forward.
We've also launched our EST website, which will showcase the work of the EST and the AFAs and feature stories of how workers and businesses have adapted, transformed, and positioned themselves to emerge stronger amidst this COVID-19 crisis. And so we welcome Singaporeans to share your ideas, spark new possibilities for collaboration, to kickstart potential ground-up initiatives and public-private initiatives through this platform.
In line with this, 6 new members have been appointed to the task force to encourage greater diversity of views in its work. Renee Poh for the Straits Times.
Well, thanks so much, Renee. Now, senior political correspondent Tham Yuen Si is here to help us digest all of this. Yuen Si, what stood out for you from today's press conference?
So this press conference was really to give an update on the work of the Emerging Stronger Task Force. And this task force brings together the public and private sectors to try and reset the economy and prepare Singapore for a post-COVID world. And what stood out for me was how, the members of the task force, they seemed actually really excited about this new approach they were taking to collaborate between the public and private sectors to come up with new ideas and projects that can take the various sectors forward.
And when you talk about collaborate, what do you mean by that in terms of in this context?
Well, so basically they described it as a startup approach, right? And as you know, Singapore's style has always been to set out roadmaps and then we scope this down into the concrete plans before moving ahead. But I think under this task force, they have set up industry-led coalitions, which have been given some leeway to develop new projects and prototypes and to try them out at the same time as they work out the specific strategies for each sector. So I think for the private sector, it seems to mean like less red tape. And, they can really just go ahead once they see an opportunity before getting all the approvals and things cleared.
I see. So it's been about 6 months since the task force was set up. What has it achieved since it was convened in May, UNC?
It has initiated a project that has actually allowed the gradual resumption of conferences and trade shows. The pilot rapid testing trial started under this project was actually used in last month's Singapore International Energy Week conference, and all visitors to that conference were tested for coronavirus on the spot before they were allowed into the venue. And then another project initiated by the task force is the testing of autonomous shuttles, and this will be done by the end of the year. And as we know, supply chains have been severely strained and tested by the pandemic. And the task force has actually brought together over 50 public agencies and companies to create a set of data standards that will allow the different segments of the supply chain ecosystem to work together.
Right. And UNC's 6 new members were added to the task force. What can you tell us about them in terms of what and how they can contribute to the team?
I think the task force was more heavily business focused before. So these 6 new members include experts in environmental and life sciences, as well as a representative from the unions. And, as the task force said during their press conference, they expect that these people will lend different perspectives. And also the task force plans to set up a medical technology coalition. So to explore the development of test kits that can diagnose diseases like COVID-19 or cancer. So the addition of these life sciences experts will definitely help in this area.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, UNC. We've been speaking to senior political correspondent for the Straits Times, Tam Yen Swee.
4 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed today, all of whom were imported.
And this marks the 9th day in a row that there were no new cases from the community and from workers' dormitories. The more details will be released tonight.
In other local news, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said today that the world will take several years to recover from the pandemic, and even then some things will change in the new normal. He added that even if there is a vaccine by the beginning of next year, it will probably be 2022 by the time it gets rolled out to a significant proportion of the population and have an impact in slowing down the spread of the disease. PM Lee also doesn't foresee international travel returning to normal next year.
8 travellers who arrived from South Korea and Thailand this month are being investigated for making false stay-home notice declarations. The Immigration and Checkpoints Authority and the police said today that 4 Singaporeans, 2 permanent residents and 2 long-term pass holders had made the false declarations to avoid serving their stay-home notices at dedicated facilities. They declared that they would be occupying their place of residence alone or only with household members with the same travel history and serving stay-home notices of the same duration. But enforcement officers conducted checks at their declared place of residence and found them residing with household members who were not serving stay-home notices. Now, if found guilty, the 4 non-Singaporeans may face having their PR status revoked or their re-entry permits and/or passes cancelled.
And according to a report on employment practices released today, more employers are being investigated for possible discriminatory hiring practices. The Tripartite Alliance for Fair and Progressive Employment Practices investigated about 260 such cases in the first half of this year. Now, this is 60% more than the same period in 2019. Well, as at August this year, some 90 employers eventually had their work pass privileges suspended due to discriminatory hiring practices, up from 35 for the full year of 2019. Errant employers will be barred from hiring new foreign workers or renewing the work passes of existing ones for 12 to 24 months.
Meanwhile, there was a significant spike in wrongful dismissal claims in the second quarter of this year, in tandem with a decline in local employment in the same period. Many of the claims were lodged by employees who were unhappy over the abrupt manner in which they were let go, due in part to restrictions in face-to-face meetings during the circuit breaker period. Observers have expressed concern recently about the possibility of more disguised retrenchments, where employers terminate the employment of workers through other means to avoid paying retrenchment benefits.
Let's take a look at the global headlines. Japan Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said today that the country is on maximum alert after logging a record number of daily coronavirus infections. More than 2,000 cases were recorded nationwide yesterday, with nearly 500 in Tokyo alone. Mr. Suga has since urged the Japanese people to wear masks even while talking during meals in restaurants.
According to India's health ministry today, the country recorded over 45,500 new COVID-19 cases, taking total infections to 8.96 million. Deaths rose by 585, with total fatalities now over 131,500. India has the world's second highest number of COVID-19 infections after the US, though cases have been falling since hitting a peak in September.
The Pacific island of Samoa announced its first COVID-19 case today, a man who flew into the country last Friday and tested positive while in isolation. Until recently, the remote Pacific islands were among the most successful in the world at keeping out the virus after closing their borders early, despite the huge cost to the tourism-reliant economies. Samoa's Prime Minister said an announcement would be made today on whether any measures would be introduced among the general population to prevent the virus from spreading.
Now, according to the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary, COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna could be ready for U.S. authorization and distribution within weeks, this setting the stage for inoculation to begin as soon as this year. Around 40 million doses of the two vaccines will be available by the end of the year. The companies will be able to produce more than 40 million doses a month for Americans every month thereafter.
Thailand Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha said today that all laws would be used against protesters who have demanded his removal, a new constitution and reforms to the monarchy. Meanwhile, according to one of the anti-government movement's most prominent leaders, the protesters are planning to expand their set of demands to also take on issues like changes in the Crown property laws and the recognition of same-sex marriage.
The weekend is upon us, which means it's time to speak to our colleagues at Live for ideas on what to do over the next few days.
Well, let's start with the Guinness Great Grill Out, a month-long festival celebrating barbecue and Guinness.
Journalist Anjali Raghuraman is here to tell us more. Hi Anjali. Now Anjali, we are midway through the festival, and this weekend Cult Yard at Pearls Hill Terrace plays host. So what can diners expect?
Yeah, so this is the third edition of the Guinness Great Grill Out. Wow, that's a mouthful. It celebrates Guinness barbecue, as you mentioned, and this weekend on November 21st and 22nd, Cult Yard, along with the butcher called Sidecar, they're putting together this awesome deal where you can head down and have a bunch of Guinness and a bunch of barbecue dishes like slow roasted lamb and sausages and beef Guinness pie. And it's part of the activations for the festival this year. Because of the pandemic, they're doing both a virtual and physical events. So this is one of the activations that are coming up this weekend.
It's not just the physical and the virtual elements. There's also a grill-in option. So what is that? Tell us more.
Okay, yeah. So since there are no large-scale events this year, there's option to attend online masterclasses. And one of them is by Chef Shen Tan, who you might be familiar with as a private dining chef who makes modern Singaporean cuisine. And she's come up with a bunch of recipes that you can learn how to make online from the comfort of your own home. So there are things like Guinness short rib in oyster sauce, and one that I found particularly intriguing was the Guinness garam masala roasted cauliflower. So that involves like taking a can of Guinness dry foreign extra stout and reducing that down to a syrup and mixing that with mayonnaise and garam masala spices and coating your cauliflower head and then roasting that in the oven. And I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but it sounds delicious.
Well, that does sound incredibly delicious. Thanks so much, Anjali. That was journalist Anjali Raghuraman. If you love barbecue and Guinness, check out the Great Grill Out at Cult Yard this weekend, or you can learn how to cook Guinness-inspired recipes at home. Of course, check it all out at get.guinness.com.
Now let's move on to Kala Utsavam, the Esplanade's Indian Festival of Arts, which opens tomorrow. To share more is Assistant Life Editor Olivia Ho. Olivia, out of the entire lineup, what are your top 3 picks and why?
This is the 19th edition of the festival, but it's also the first digital one. Like many other arts festivals in Singapore, it's had to go mostly online. So I think if I were to pick 3, I would have to go for the 3 big digital premieres. So they are premiering these 2 dance works and one Tamil festival of plays. So the 2 dance works are by Apsara Arts and Chap Productions. The Apsaras is Amara, Dancing Stories of Bantusri, and it's inspired by this 10th century Khmer temple, Bantusri, which is a citadel of women. It's unlike all the other Cambodian temples, it stands out because it's got these pink sandstone walls. It's known for its very beautiful wall relief carvings of figures and scenes from Hindu epics like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. So what's going to happen in this dance film is that they're going to bring to life these figures from these epics through dance. And then the other work is Pallavi Through Abstractions by Chap Productions. That's their Pallavi trilogy. So it's the 3rd installment. The other 2, Pallavi in Time, Pallavi with Stillness, and they've been doing this since 2016. So this is the conclusion to the trilogy. It explores the relationship of the classical dance form, Odissi, to space and time and stillness. And again, it is a film. It's in collaboration with the choreographer Raka Maitra and the filmmaker Latuen. And the last one is Ravindran Drama Group's annual Tamil 10-minute play festival, Bate Nibidam. So this was founded in 2013, and this is its first debut at the festival. And it's got 9 10-minute plays, and they've got all sorts of subjects. I think there's one of which a taxi driver trying to change shift, but he's got this customer who needs to get home, pick up a passport. There's a queer police officer who's seeking answers from God in a locker room. All kinds of very different subject matters, but they're all said to be quite close to the heart, quite close to home. And the directors have collaborated with the local filmmaker K. Rajagopal to film the plays. K. Rajagopal, known for the award-winning film A Yellow Bird. And so, yeah, I would say these are the 3 digital premieres that you should catch.
Wow, sounds like a myriad of things to expect from the festival. Well, thank you so much, Olivia. We've been speaking to Olivia Ho, Assistant Life Editor at the Straits Times. Kala Utsavam is on from tomorrow until December 20th. Now, besides a few concerts at the Esplanade, you can also catch most of the performances on 6stick Live and Esplanade Offstage.
We're also going to recommend a new film for you, which is out today. Now, a few years ago, an Iraqi Special Forces team roamed the country's 2nd most populous city, Mosul, parts of which had fallen to ISIS.
The extraordinary feats behind enemy lines were captured in a 2017 New Yorker magazine article, and that has been adapted into a movie, Mosul.
Well, film correspondent John Louis is here to delve deeper into it. Hi, John. So, in what ways does Mosul differentiate itself from other movies in this genre, the military, thriller, action movie genre, like Black Hawk Down, like American Sniper, for example?
Well, the main thing that sets it different is that it's all in Arabic. So in a lot of those films, you see from the American point of view, so they are following American rules, and there's a lot of patriotic flag waving. This is a group of people whose lives have been affected by the war in their home city of Mosul, and they're taking commando action and doing what they can. They are kind of pirates, renegades. So you see them moving from adventure to little adventure, and it's spectacular action, if you like that kind of thing.
So on that note, is this movie for everyone or for a very specific audience?
Well, as someone who served NS, what irritates me is when I see war movies and they do the wrong thing, like when they shoot guns and they never seem to reload, or people can walk away from explosions and bullet wounds, and snipers that stick their rifle way out of the edge of a building so that they can be seen from a mile away. That kind of thing irritates me. So if you like authentic military action, then this is the film for you.
And did you like the movie, John?
It was a blast to watch. It was action-packed, and nothing in it really irritated me military-wise. So.
Okay. So, Olivia, do you think you're going to catch it?
Possibly, but you have to be in a very specific mindset to catch a very serious movie like that. So as soon as I, mentally prepare myself, of course, why not?
All right. Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us to share more. Now, that was film correspondent John Lui. Mosul opens today. Just one of 3 ideas you can do over the weekend. Now, the Friday section in tomorrow's paper will have even more suggestions, so keep an eye out for that.
Right. Well, for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.